Mayor. Mayor Wu is joining us. That's Thursday of this week, not Friday. We're also streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. And by the way, a shout out to Margery for making it. She lost her script, her headphones didn't work, and everything else that could go wrong did, but she rescued
right down to the wire, Jim. Really, right down to the wire.
The excitement is
live life on the edge.
Incredible. So in the wake of the Supreme Court's overruling of Roe v. Wade, some are calling for concrete, bolder action from a Democratic-controlled Congress and White House on access to abortion. Missouri Democrat Cori Bush is quoted in the Washington Post. Here's her quote. It's pretty amazing. We have Democrats that are doing the opposite. You know, they just aren't fighting. When people see that, what's going to make them show up to vote? We can't just tell people, well, just vote. Vote your problems away, because they're looking at us and saying, well, we already voted for you. Today's primary day in a number of states, as you just heard. We'll have a surprise January 6th hearing. We'll carry it live at 1 o'clock, where the Congressional Committee is trying to make the case that Trump and the Republicans were at the heart of a conspiracy to overthrow the government after a free and fair election. So we're basically turning to Cori Bush for the next few minutes with you. Is it time for Democrats to play the game like the Republicans and Mitch McConnell do, especially when it comes to things like reproductive and civil rights and assaults on democracy? You can call us or text us. Text line is currently down. It'll be up in a minute. 877-301-8970, or you can tweet us at BOS Public Radio.
You know, it was another great quote from this piece was by this former Republican, Kurt Bardella, who now works for Democrats. He said the Democrats shouldn't be afraid of bold action. He said, Democrats start with the question of, are we allowed to do this or not? And he goes on to say, you know, just do it, and then if later maybe the courts turn it down, but you try to do something in the meantime, at least you tried. What they won't forgive, he says, is if you keep asking them to keep you in power, but you don't do anything with that power, or at least try to do something with that power.
I want to return to that. Can we return to that in a minute? I just want to tell people what's happening at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
I assume most people are up to speed. We know that this Cassidy Hutchinson, who was a key aide to Mark Meadows, the chief of staff to Donald Trump, was, quote, in the room where it happened. Everything from
right.
Republicans asking for pardons, Republican members of Congress, to Mark Meadows allegedly burning documents, to discussions about fake electors. And by the way, the reports are they were discussing fake electors before the election had even happened in the Oval Office. So she's huge. There's some speculation that this Alex Holder, who did a film in which he talks to Trump, Trump's kids, and Mike Pence, may also be a witness today. Again, we'll bring that to you live at 1 o'clock. But the issue really is, you know, Margery, you've led the charge on this. In a moment of seriousness.
I've led the charge.
No, in all seriousness, you have said for years, whenever we talk about the Catholic Church and the obscene behavior of cardinal law allowing this sexual assault and sexual violence against kids to continue, that Tom Riley should have indicted him,
Cardinal Law.
should have tried
Absolutely.
him, and if he was acquitted, he was acquitted.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what the Cori Bushes are saying, even if you can't guarantee a victory, the Democrats control the presidency. They control
right.
Congress, albeit by the slimmest of margins in the Senate. Let them try to carve out an exception in the filibuster and codify the Roe v. Wade protections in federal law. There is the brilliant suggestion by Elizabeth Warren that abortions be provided on federal land. Some people are saying it may violate the Hyde Amendment, which says no federal money for abortions. As you say, just do it and let them sue.
And exactly. And they will have performed however many abortions they can if the courts do rule it illegal later because of the Hyde Amendment. I mean, there is
and also show they care about the damn issue.
There's just this, I think this guy, Bardella, the former Republican, is absolutely right. There's this hesitancy. You know, Joe Biden, as the same Washington Post piece points out, is like hidebound about, you know, traditions and the institutions of the federal government. It's a different federal government now. It's a different time. And, you know, the Republicans, you got to give them credit. They play hardball. They go for the long game. And the Democrats got to get with the program if they want to get any better. Meanwhile, we were talking this morning about how many suburban Democrats are changing their party affiliation from Democrats to Republican, which even bodes worse for the Democrats in the 2022 elections. Let's go to Martha in Acton. What do you think, Martha?
Hi. So on the one hand, I'd love to see the Democrats do more. I'd hate to see the Democrats do things the way the Republicans do, because they fight so dirty. But the most important thing is to vote because, yes, we already voted for them. Nothing's getting done. But we don't have a useful majority. We have such a slim majority. We can put out all the good ideas or incredibly important ideas we want, and we can't get anything done until we have a bigger majority.
Well, Martha, can I interrupt you? I could not disagree more. Let's look at Joe Manchin, who has been part of the problem in terms of a carve-out in the filibuster so that they could protect abortion rights with 50 votes. He apparently is very upset that he was lied to by Kavanaugh. Even though he is anti-choice, he thought Roe was the established law of the land. Let's see if we can get Manchin's vote to carve out an exception to protect reproductive rights for women. And also, I think Cori Bush really nailed it, Congresswoman Bush. The goal is to fight for the things you believe in. And if you happen to not be successful, at least you're telling the American people that we care about this thing. This is not about purely saying we can count the votes and we lose. I hear you, but I think they got to fight. And thank you for your call. We appreciate it. 877. Pardon me. What?
I don't disagree with what you were saying either, though.
Okay, good. Thank you. 877-301-8970.
You know, I forget where I read these things, but somebody made a great point about Joe Biden. He can't seem to make up his mind where he wants to be. Does he want to be with the progressive side of the party that wants a lot of these changes, that wants Build Back Better, that wanted more money for child care, et cetera, child tax credit, et cetera? Or does he want to be on the moderate side? He's driving all over the road, and that's, as this reporter put it, and that's an absolutely great point. But I think there's a huge frustration that Joe Biden could not get Joe Manchin to do what he wanted him to do. Joe Biden is the President of the United States. Joe Manchin is a senator from West Virginia. You can't coerce Joe Manchin to do some of your bidding. I just don't get it.
Did you see the, I'm trying to be kind here, no adjective. Did you see the interview Dana Bash did with Kamala Harris yesterday?
Horrible.
Let me tell you something. If she had asked one more time, I think it's a pretty straight question. Does the President of the United States, does your administration support a carve-out from the filibuster, so you'll need 50 votes rather than 60 to protect abortion rights? I think our position is quite clear, says the Vice President. It's not clear to me or Dana Bash. Do you support a carve-out? Well, I think he has said he supports a carve-out for voting rights and other critical issues. Answer the damn question and lead.
How about when Dana Bash asked if they should prosecute President Trump? We've all been watching these hearings. We've been watching every single one of them nonstop. And why didn't she say, absolutely, yes, we should. It looks to me like crimes have been committed. I mean, why do you have to be so timid about that? If the Vice President of the United States can't say that Trump should be prosecuted at this point, and she was a prosecutor.
Exactly, she was a prosecutor.
I mean, it's very discouraging.
Let's go to Aaron in Framingham. You're next on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling, Aaron. Hi.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my call. Speaking of Democratic leadership, I just wanted to make a quick point that I think some of this is not just weakness, but strategy. For instance,
I have to say, I can't understand what you're saying, and it's not your fault.
It's a bad connection.
Rotten connection. We're going to put you on hold, and we'll get back to you in a second. By the way, the texts are working again. Here's one. Democrats can't get out of their way. This is Josh in Boston. The lower they go, the higher we seem to go and do nothing but lose ground. Democrats need to reflect their constituents, and we're angry, and we are angry at them for their inactivity and their complacency. I think he speaks for a lot of Democrats. And, you know, a lot of people position this, the left wing, whatever that means, of the Democratic Party, to support protecting abortion rights, for example, in the Congress is not exactly a left-wing strategy.
Well,
it's a basic civil rights strategy.
But I've said a million times, the so-called left wing of the Democratic Party represents a lot of what most people in this country want, even independents, which is things like help with guns, which is things with abortion they just overruled, which is things with climate. These are not like left-wing positions anymore. The radicals now are on the right. They're not on the left.
Well, there's some radicals, but I agree with you. Most, when the media characterizes these left-wing, so-called left-wing positions, I'm with you, they're generally pretty mainstream in America. Dave in Haverhill, you're on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Hi, Dave Mahoney. How are you?
Good.
Fine, thanks.
So I agree with the last caller or the one before that
Yep.
I don't think we ought to reach to their level, but I think we need to start telling the truth. And I think we need to start calling them out. And we seem to fall into their political story versus calling them out. For example, the issue on abortion, I suspect many of them really don't believe about the law that passed. This is all a fundraising event.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, can I get back to your point? Of course, we should. They should. Anybody who is taking an anti-majoritarian position should be called out in terms of that. But getting back to, we shouldn't stoop to their level. I don't even know what those words mean, Dave. With all due respect, was Mitch McConnell? I guess Mitch McConnell, by playing the way Mitch McConnell plays, was successful in repealing, overruling Roe v. Wade, in loosening gun restrictions so people can ride on a subway with a weapon or near a school or some such thing. Is it too low for Democrats to take a vote on protecting Roe v. Wade, on protecting same-sex marriage, if the Supreme Court decides to undo that? And by the way, Nancy Pelosi, who I've had some issues with in the past, her attitude is exactly what we're talking about. Dave, thanks for the call. Her attitude is the House should pass what is right for America. If it doesn't pass the Senate, I've done all I can do. She essentially is embracing your philosophy, is everything we have the votes for that will move this country in a more democratic, small d democratic direction, they should do, and let the Democrats in the Senate get the votes to pull this thing together.
So I think Pelosi, didn't you support the anti-choice guy in Texas?
Queller, I think it was a
Which
mistake.
I think was a big mistake on her part.
Yeah, but that's I'm not excusing it, but it's one race. She's also talking about filing legislation to protect a whole host of rights that the Supreme Court may be repealing. I think that's the exact right way to go.
We're going to try again with you, Aaron, in Framingham, when we get back from the break. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio. We're talking about Democrats getting more chutzpah, or whatever you want to call it, and the hearings this afternoon starting at 1 o'clock. You're listening to 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
So today at 1 o'clock, we will bring you what will be the sixth hearing on the January 6th attack on the Capitol. It's unscheduled, and as has been the case for this entire membership drive, fundraising will stop to bring you NPR's live coverage of the essential news event. Jim and I will be covering it from 1 to 3, and then NPR will take over after that. Anyway, this is the last day of the drive, so we're going to be ending all fundraising at 1 o'clock instead of at 7 o'clock. So if you want to give, if you've been procrastinating, if you think you'd like to give, and you just haven't gotten around to it, this is your opportunity today. And if you want to do the sustainer deal, which is $10 a month, well, we have two nice gifts for you today. We have this dry bag. We have the wireless earbuds, which I'm very familiar with.
We know you
because
are.
I got the wireless earbuds, and unfortunately, I lost them in a pile of mulch a couple
It's
of
not
years
the
ago.
fault of the earbuds,
No,
we should say.
it was my fault. It was
Margery.
my fault.
Yeah, what
But they're
else?
great. I mean, earbuds doesn't get much better than
Not
that,
much
right?
better
Earbuds.
than
This is a great deal,
What
$10
else?
a month. And we also have this GBH dry bag with the nice logo. I mean, the earbuds have the logo on it too.
Yeah.
The GBH News logo. See it, Jim? It's right here.
I see it, thank
Yep,
you.
it's very attractive.
Hold it up.
As a dry, this is perfect if you're going to go to the beach, you're going to go someplace where you want to keep your phone or your wallet or whatever you got dry and not full of sand and not full of wetness and all that kind of stuff.
I
Those
told
are
you
the
what I'm
deals.
doing. I'm going whitewater rafting this weekend, and so I'm going to be using the maybe I'm not, but a dry bag is great. You know what else is today?
What?
For the first hour only, well, it's actually not even an hour, it's 40 minutes till
Yep.
noon, a $20,000 match. So let's say, for example, you give $10 a month to do the earbuds and the dry bag kind of thing. It becomes $20 a month because of this $20,000 match. That disappears at noon. So not only is fundraising for this whole pledge drive over at 1 rather than 7, which means if you really want to give, now is the time to do it, your money is doubled up until noon. So the perfect time to make a contribution to 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org. If you were contemplating doing it, and we think you should do that contemplation, and then the real deal is between now and 12 o'clock.
That's right, because the match ends at 12 o'clock.
Match ends at 12
and
o'clock.
fundraising today ends at 1 because the meeting is going to start, the hearings are going to start, which we're very excited about, because we don't really know why they're having them in this rush, and we don't really know who's going to say what, so we're very excited about those. But anyway, if you're procrastinating, this is it. The fund drive's over at 1 o'clock today, so if you've been thinking about it and putting it off, we hope you decide to do something right now. 888-897-9424 is the number. gbhnews.org is where you can give online, and we thank you very, very much for whatever you can contribute.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim, Brady, and Margery again. In an hour and 38 minutes, we'll be bringing you live coverage of Day 6 of the hearings. We know that one of the witnesses, there may only be one, we don't know, is this Cassidy Hutchinson, former aide to Mark Meadows, chief of staff to Donald Trump. Here's a little bit of Hutchinson in an earlier hearing. This is the 5th hearing that was aired, I guess, last Thursday. Here she is.
Mr. Gates had reached out to me to ask if he could have a meeting with Mr. Meadows about receiving a presidential pardon.
Did they all contact you?
Not all of them, but several of them did.
So you mentioned Mr. Gates, Mr. Brooks.
Mr. Biggs did. Mr. Jordan talked about congressional pardons, but he never asked me for one. It was more for an update on whether the White House is going to pardon members of Congress.
You couldn't hear the beginning. The slimy Matt Gaetz, who credibly is accused of engaging in trafficking of underage women, girls, was one of the first people that contacted Cassidy Hutchinson and asked for a, how do I go about getting a pardon? Can I?
How about getting a pardon for his whole life?
Yeah,
It wasn't
for everything, that's right.
That's right.
You know,
I guess if he got some parking tickets back when he was a teenager, maybe he was speeding or something.
One of the things we're talking about is whether the Democrats should, some people object to this, play like the Republicans, play politics. And listen to this text. Getting rid of the filibuster for anything makes me nervous, this is unsigned, because that'll be Mitch McConnell's excuse to get rid of the filibuster for Republican agendas. Respectfully, he already did it. That's why we have these Supreme Court justices who were Donald Trump's nominees, because he got rid of the filibuster. So what people are basically saying to us, and most of the texts are like this, and the calls apparently are that way so far too. So it's okay for Mitch McConnell. By the way, it's not illegal what he did, to bend the rules, to pack the Supreme Court, but the Democrats shouldn't lower themselves, whatever that means to that level. So goodbye abortion, goodbye gun safety, goodbye climate change. What are people talking about? I don't get it.
Yeah. Aaron in Framingham, we're going to try again. Sorry about before.
Hey,
Thanks
Aaron.
for calling.
Welcome.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. First time, long time.
Thank you.
You sort of already mentioned my point about Nancy Pelosi going out and campaigning for Henry Cuellar. And
Cuellar, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Democrat in the House.
Yeah.
And while I understand that Nancy Pelosi has the larger agenda of maintaining a House majority, I think it's actually counterproductive for her to make those sorts of moves because, as people have mentioned, the Democrats need to pass something. They need to give people something to vote for. And when you're out there campaigning for anti-choice Democrats, you basically limit what you can do. And I think this is like a larger strategy with them, or issue with Dem leadership. I mean, look at how they handled Joe Manchin during the Build Back Better. If they rode the momentum of the stimulus bill into Build Back Better, maybe they had a chance. But they knew what Manchin wanted mid-summer last year, and yet they did nothing. They kept this sort of illusion going. And I think, these are all opportunities for them to send fundraising emails. And if they solve the issue, they probably feel like there's nothing left to fundraise on. Mm-hmm. But what they're going to get in exchange is votes. So I want to vote for Democrats. They're the party that most closely represents my values. But I'm not having a really hard time, bringing myself to do it because what's the end result?
Aaron,
More anti-choice Democrats.
I really appreciate it. That was a great first call. You are representative of, I think, exactly what the Democratic Party is worried about. People who, and I assume I should have asked you this, but I assume you're not going to vote Republican. The issue is, do you vote for the Democrats or do you just sit it out? What was the story you showed me this morning that 1 million people, mostly suburban people last year, have switched parties, and the vast majority have switched from Democrat to Republican, and that was sort of the key for Joe Biden in 2020, was it not?
Yeah, more than 1 million, and it was talking about this is going on all over the country, and it's mostly going on in suburban areas of the country.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of suburban women that helped Joe Biden last time around. Now this is before Roe, so we don't yet know what
the
that's going to
impact, yeah.
mean for those Republicans, because obviously
I'm sorry.
Republicans are against Roe v. Wade for the most part.
You know what we do know?
What?
That a poll taken right before the overruling of Roe said only 25%, which is virtually nobody, has respect for the Supreme Court of the United States. That's a real problem. By the way, when a critical arm of the democracy is, especially the judiciary, is not trusted by the American people, that's a real issue, do you not think?
Listen, I blame John Roberts. I mean, I asked this to Nancy Gertner yesterday, and she said he has no power to do anything about Clarence Thomas, who shouldn't be voting on anything to do with the election.
I agree with you.
Because his wife has been making money and influencing the court with her amicus brief. She doesn't write them herself, but clients of hers do, and they're quoted in the Supreme Court decision. So anyway, he should be...
Plus trying to overturn the election with Arizona legislators and with Mark Meadows.
Yeah,
And
I mean, so John Roberts should say something.
agree.
I mean,
Totally.
We're just going to sit here and have Clarence Thomas vote on things where he's so compromised. It's just, I don't know why they expect people at this juncture to have a lot of faith in
Well,
them.
can I add to your point? The point you made when you first mentioned that a couple of days ago makes it even stronger, which is John Roberts thought it was fine to speak out about the leak of the Alito opinion in the overruling of Roe, which I agree he should have spoken out about. They don't want leaks. So if you can do that,
Exactly.
why can't you respectfully call out a colleague who is destroying whatever credibility your court has? Where do you want to go?
Bill in Boston, thank you
Hey,
for
Bill,
calling.
welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I basically, the Democrats they have to play just like the Republicans do. I mean, there's no integrity with Mitch McConnell. If they don't do something, to kind of force issues, like with Joe Manchin, if he doesn't get in line, then primary his ass off, Just tell him, get in line with us, or we're going to go after you.
Well, I don't know if they're going to beat him in his state. He's popular. But I'll tell you another thing that also Margery suggested months ago during the Build Back Better debacle, Bill, was Joe Biden calls him in a la LBJ and says, hey, Joe, not $1 federal dollar that isn't statutorily required to go to West Virginia is going to go to West Virginia unless you're on board. That's how... And by the way, I want to respond to your first thought, Bill, and some other callers. Again, it is perfectly fine to do that. That's what presidents do. It is perfectly fine to push legislation that you're not convinced is going to pass in the Senate because it's the right thing to do, and then fight like hell. So I am with you, and I know Margery's with you. Show that you have a pulse and fight for what really matters here. Bill, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
This is a different Aaron, or maybe it's the same Aaron who also texted, but anyway, it's Aaron from Hopkinton. Get these ancient and inept Dems out of office. Schumer, Pelosi, Biden, relics of a bygone era, time for new blood and maybe some real action. But none of that will fly with the Dems campaign finance machine, and we're stuck. Bye-bye, Miss American Pie.
By the way,
Another discouraged voter.
Before we break, someone wrote a very nice comment about us and then went on to say, just wondering if the abortion discussion, the special that was scheduled for this afternoon at 2, was rescheduled. And sorry if you already said it. It will be rescheduled for when, Margery?
It's going to be Thursday at 2.
Right here.
2 to 3:30 right here in the Boston Public Library. That's right. We're very excited about it.
Paris Alston, Callie Crossley,
Yep.
Margery Egan hosting a special 90 minutes on Roe and what the future holds.
Okay, so
Thanks for calls.
we are moving on. Coming up next, we're going to talk to our sports expert, Trenni Kusnierek. She's going to be next after this brief break. We're here at the Boston Public Library. You are listening to 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio.
Boston Public Radio. Live, local conversations. Every day brought to you by listener support. Now it's your turn to keep the conversation going with a contribution in any amount. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
So just like we did the other day, we didn't do the fundraising during our discussions about abortion. We're not doing the fundraising today during our coverage of the hearings from 1 to 3 with Jim and me, and then after 3 with the NPR staff. So we're going to end fundraising. This is the last day of the fundraiser, but it's going to end at 1 o'clock because of those important news that we don't want anybody to miss. So if you've been procrastinating, haven't done it, I'm a big procrastinator. I'm always doing things at the last minute. This is the last minute. And we have a couple of things that might entice you to get on board in these last couple of hours. Between now and noon, we have this great $20,000 match that has to do with very generous members of GBH here. They're matching contributions from now until noon, dollar for dollar. So that means, it's, what does that mean, Jim? A dollar match for $20,000?
It means you give 10, it becomes 20. You
Thank
give
you.
1,000, it becomes 2,000, up to $20,000.
Okay.
You really just asked
Thank you
that
very
question?
much. Well, I'm challenged when it comes to math.
is
Couldn't
so
get that
sad.
one. But even better, I do get this one completely. We have these
Yeah.
earbuds with the
Yeah.
GBH logo on them. For $10 a month, we'll thank you with not just the earbuds, but also with the GBH dry bag. It is, of course, summer. This is a great time for dry bag for your stuff at the beach or your stuff on your bike that you want to keep from getting full of water or full of sand or whatever. So that's the deal. And the fundraising is ending at 1, and this is the last day of the fund drive. So 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And by the way, if it wasn't clear, while the fundraising, the whole pledge drive ends at 1, this $20,000 match ends at noon. And Margery, I have a question for you. Let's assume someone's listening and saying, I don't know, I want to give $125 today to GBH. How much would we get as a result of the match? $125. What would that be, please?
That'd be another $125, right?
Which would be?
$250.
Thank you very much, using their little calculator there. Double your money. By the way, I have to say, we always often talk about how Margery and I started giving before we worked here.
Yep.
I would always wait until there was a match. It's sort of like you're waiting for a discount of your favorite item at some store. You wait till it's 30% off. You wait for this. This is the second to last hour of the drive. Every dollar you give up to $20,000 is doubled as a result of these generous donors. So do it at 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. You're going to feel bad after 1 o'clock if you didn't do it, and you intended to. Do it right now. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. She is Margery. And we're live at the Boston Public Library. We are back this Thursday, not Friday, Thursday, for Ask the Mayor. Mayor Wu will join us for an hour. We're joined now on Zoom by NBC Sports Boston's Trenni Kusnierek. Trenni's an anchor and reporter and a BPR contributor. Hello, Trenni Kusnierek.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Hey, Trenni, great to see you. So we seem to spend a lot of time talking to you about sex harassment and sexual assault in the NFL. What's going on with that superstar quarterback, Desean Watson?
Well, he has settled 20 of 24 sexual assault civil cases against him. None of the cases brought against him in criminal court went before a grand jury. He was not indicted on any of those charges, so he won't face any punishment criminally, but he did settle civilly. And now the NFL has leaked out, I think it was a calculated leak, that they would like an indefinite suspension for him from the NFL, upwards of at least a year suspension, which would far surpass what, let's say, Ben Roethlisberger got when he was accused of raping a woman in a bathroom. I believe it was in Georgia. Early on in his career, he was suspended 6 games. That was reduced to 4 games for good behavior. It seems like the NFL, who has been doing its own independent investigation, feels that the allegations and the information they have gathered are strong enough that they would like to push for him to have really a very harsh punishment. They're also looking to possibly affect the way his contract was structured. So the way Cleveland did it, which I suppose on one hand you could say was a brilliant move by the Cleveland Browns, and another you could say it was dirty and slimy and disgusting. That's the camp I fall into. They structured his deal so the first year of his record-setting, I think it's $230 or $250 million contract, is like $1 million. So that if he was suspended for a year, the Cleveland Browns, like Desean Watson would only lose $1 million. He would not lose out on the brunt of his contract. They've backloaded it, but there are rumors that the NFL will try to go after that as well and not allow that to happen. Now, whether or not they succeed, whether or not the independent judge, the arbitrator who they have brought in to handle these cases, hands out that stiff of a punishment is to be seen, but we expect to actually have a decision, I think, before the 4th of July.
You know, the thing I think the stronger the NFL is with this guy, the better.
Agreed.
24, 26 cases don't lie. Settlements don't lie either. Having said that, if I were representing Desean Watson, I would say, well, Daniel Snyder, owner of the Washington team, we're going to talk about him in a minute, is, quote, suspended for a year, but not really, because his wife is put in charge of the team, which is what? They're not talking about it at home? There's a guy, Robert Kraft, in Boston. I'm not equating what Kraft did in Florida to what Desean Watson is accused of doing, but it's not nothing. What was the penalty for Kraft? I can't remember.
There was, I believe,
nothing.
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 But,
no,
he
well,
wasn't.
But the difference is the players are employees of the NFL and of the owners, right? So they sign a collectively bargained agreement that has stipulations in it, codes of conduct, punishment, independent arbitrator, that, you know, even if they're not criminally charged, they will possibly face punishment. Whereas the ownership group is completely different. Like, and I know we're going to get to this in a second, but Roger Goodell was asked on Capitol Hill, well, via Zoom, during a hearing regarding Daniel Snyder, well, why is he still the owner of the Washington Commanders? The league has no, jurisdiction over it. It has to be the ownership group would have to, 3/4 of owners would have to vote out Daniel Snyder. So
no, but I'm not talking about
unfair.
No,
unfair, but there's something they don't have a path.
No, I am not talking
punish.
about taking away his ownership, which is what will require an independent arbitrator. This former Judge Robinson can do whatever the hell but whether she can or not is a matter of equity.
But Jim, that arbitrator is for players. That arbitrator is not for owners.
I understand that, but it's an equitable argument that we don't have to debate this endlessly. You know, before we get to Snyder, and you can tell us what the sins of this slimy guy who owns the Washington team is, do you have any idea how the fans in Cleveland feel about? I would assume, as much as the Patriots fans want to win, if they had brought this serial sexual predator, credibly accused sexual predator to New England, I'm hoping our neighbors here would not be thrilled that this great athlete was playing in Boston.
So I think, like anything, and listen, obviously I don't live in Cleveland, but I've kind of followed it a little bit online. I think it's split. I think there are a certain sect of the population who find it disgusting, who have renounced their fandom to the Cleveland Browns. Some people have chosen to get rid of their season tickets in protest. But then you have, just as we always do, a whole nother large group of people who say, well, he wasn't criminally charged with anything. I thought you were innocent until proven guilty, like not understanding truly how the court system works, and how the grand jury system works, and how often cases of sexual harassment, sexual assault get dismissed so easily just by implicit biases that, you know, these women asked for it, or what were they doing anyway, communicating with him, you know, via Instagram, and they're just looking for money. Like that's such a common narrative around these cases, and it's one that a lot of people fall back on.
So what exactly is Dan Snyder accused of?
Well, he specifically is accused now of sexual assault in the back of a private plane in 2009, which has only recently come to light. But in terms of the Washington Commanders as a whole, he is being accused of basically running a franchise, just a ring of debauchery, sexual harassment claims, discrimination, sexism, from team employees sort of being pushed to overly sexualized cheerleaders, sexual harassment cases not being handled, issues with the team. And then, of course, even going back just to the name change and being reluctant and refusing to change the name from the Redskins to the Commanders until public pressure became so intense that he had to do it. I mean, I don't understand how ownership, like I always go back to, and I hate to always make the NBA seem like it's this perfect utopia of a league, but I'm sure you guys remember the Sterling case.
Sure.
Of the former owner of the Clippers, who was caught on tape using the N-word and being racist and disparaging towards Black people. And the NBA, it was like the minute those things came to light, you're out. You are not an owner anymore in the NBA. We do not want your kind around here. But Daniel Snyder, for whatever reason, gets to have his wife run the team, and all of the other owners, they kind of look the other way and say, well, what are we supposed to do? Our hands are tied. Well, your hands actually aren't tied. And I personally think that it has to do with how many of these owners don't want to be scrutinized for similar behavior.
Exactly. Well, the NFL cares as much about women as the Supreme Court cares about women. I mean, that's
okay.
It's really,
and that's to say not all.
A den of debauchery over there, I guess, at the NFL.
I mean, we don't have time. It's an endless list against this guy.
Terrible.
And he is still the owner of the team, which is
okay.
Really
the problem too, I know you don't want to harp on this, but the problem too is that listen, do I think that this should be handled by a congressional hearing? I mean, I feel like there are much bigger fish to fry in the country right now than whether or not the Redskins are run on the up and up, but it suggests how easy it is for corporate America and for powerful men to run businesses however they may choose without any ramifications. And when they had this hearing, Daniel Snyder did not show up to the point where the lead Democrat leading the commission wants to subpoena him. And you had guys like Jim Jordan, and I believe, is it Corbin from Texas, making a complete mockery of all of the accusations against him, and instead asking the commissioner why David Portnoy of Barstool isn't allowed at games, why Deflategate, why they suspended Tom Brady. It's disgusting how little respect women get in that area, in that world. That they don't even care to protect our rights inside the workplace. Because that's really what this is about. This is about equal opportunity, equal employment, and being able to go to work without feeling like you are going to be harassed day in and day out. And if you speak up, you will lose their job.
By the way, we should be clear for people who want precision. That group of people is called the Sexual Predator Caucus. In the Congress, they have a formal name.
Remember, Jim Jordan was involved in covering up
at Ohio State.
Ohio State
a wrestling
exactly.
A thing where the wrestlers were being abused, and he did not act as he should have at that point. Anyway, we're talking to NBC Sports Boston's Trenni Kusnierek. She's going to be right back with us. We'll talk about the Red Sox after a quick break. You're listening to 89.7 GBH Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
Think about it. For 3 hours every day, you get to hear thought-provoking conversations on local, national, and international issues for free. It only happens with your support. So please support your Boston Public Radio listening by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
Okay, there are only 3 things you need to know. 1, the whole membership drive is supposed to end at 7. It's ending at 1 because we feel it's pretty important. I'm sure you do too. We bring you live coverage of Day 6 of the January 6th committee hearings. Number 2, there is a $20,000 dollar-for-dollar match, which disappears an hour earlier in 16 minutes. And number 3, get with it. I mean, if you have not made a contribution yet and you're listening, it means you care about something on this station, and it costs a lot of money to put on these shows that I feel pretty good about. We have some wonderful colleagues doing some wonderful work on air and behind the scenes, and this is your opportunity to show that you know that 70% of our money comes from individual listeners. We'd like you to become one of those 70% if you are not yet by calling 888-897-9424 or going to gbhnews.org.
So we do these fund drives because we are commercial-free radio, and the fund drives enable us to have enough money to do commercial-free radio. So that's why we depend on you, and that's why we ask for money, because otherwise we would have commercials. And since we're on the YouTube today, I'll hold up the little dry bag.
Love that.
Yeah, with the GBH logo on it. And these are the earbuds. They would normally have the GBH logo on it, but I have ones without. But if you get them, you'll get the ones with the GBH logo. The thing is, you roll this stuff up, and you put this bag up, and you put in your phone, your wallet, whatever you want to put in, you don't want it to get wet or get full
Put
of
your
sand.
earbuds right in there.
Oh, exactly. Put the
Exactly,
earbuds in there.
thank you.
You can put your iPad in here too.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of stuff you can put in here. You wouldn't
incredible.
want to get wet. So that's what we've got on offer today for $10 a month. That's a sustainer membership, and that enables our budget people to know how much we're making during the year. But we always appreciate whatever you can give. It's, with inflation, with gas prices, everything else, it's a difficult time for people. So you may not want to do $10 a month, but we are grateful for whatever you can give us here because, as I said before, 70% of our money comes from generous listeners like you. So here's the number again, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
13 and a half minutes till this $20,000 matching grant disappears. 13 minutes, and every dollar you give, up to $20,000 will be matched by some generous GBH donors, dollar for dollar. Now's the time to give if you haven't. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. As Margery said, any amount is appreciated. You can do $5, do 5. You can do 5,000, do 5,000. Whatever you can do, we really urge you to do it now at 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery Egan and I at the Boston Public Library. We're about a little more than an hour away from day 6 of the January 6th committee hearings. We'll bring that to you live. But first, we're talking to NBC Sports Boston, Trenni Kusnierek.
So Trenni Kusnierek, Dan Shaughnessy has a great column talking about the seeming discrepancy between the way fans reacted to Kyrie Irving around here, the NBA player we used to be with the Celtics that wasn't getting vaccinated, and people all thought he was a selfish teammate, blah, blah, blah. So Shaughnessy is asking, do we feel that same kind of scorn toward the 3 anti-vaxxers on the Red Sox team who are not going to be able to play in Toronto because they are not vaccinated? Is there as much scorn aimed at them, or is it different with the Red Sox?
I mean, I think it's different with the Red Sox, but not because it's so much about their status, but it's just about like the Red Sox versus the Celtics, right? Like, so one, people hate Kyrie and they hate any reason, they want any reason to like not like him. But 2, I mean, at least for right now, I feel like as if the Red Sox start to play better, I think it might get more attention, but they've sort of flown under the radar. Like, how many of you knew that they had the best record in baseball for the month of June and it had skyrocketed to the top of the American League behind only 2 other teams, right? Like, people just weren't paying attention. Listen, if you're just an average Joe and you're just going through life and you don't want to get vaccinated, like, I don't agree with it, but whatever. I'm to a point where it's like your choice. It doesn't really, let's be honest, doesn't really affect me. So fine. But if I am working with you and we're on a project and we can't execute that project and we lose a big bid or you lose something and I lose it because one of my colleagues isn't vaccinated because they refuse to, I'm furious.
Totally.
And for these Red Sox players to, suggest that they don't care, like, sure, it might not matter in June. Let's be honest. This series in June might not have a huge impact, but it could. These are 2 teams with a half a game separating them in the wild card standings right now. And these 2 teams have to play each other the second to last weekend in September of the regular season of baseball. So if you're fighting for a wild card spot, or maybe you continue to surge and you are fighting with the Yankees for the top of the American League division, and maybe you get a cleaner, easier path in the postseason, or what if, this is one scenario that no one's even talking about. What if for some reason it lines up and you have to play the Blue Jays in the playoffs? It happens that you have to play in division and you can't take Chris Sale, Tanner Hope, Jarren Duran, and Cutter Crawford isn't getting as much attention because he's Cutter Crawford, and other than his cool name, he's just like okay out of the bullpen, serviceable, like no one really cares. But are you really, everyone's gonna be like, oh, well, big deal, it's just a personal choice, whatever, I guess we'll just forfeit those games in Toronto. No, you're going to be ticked off if that happens. And listen, the Sox are a little bit between a rock and a hard place. It was brought up. Sometimes I read the comments. I don't know why, but sometimes I read the comments on Shaughnessy's stories.
So do I.
And somebody brought up a really great point that when they signed Trevor Story, his signing was contingent on him getting vaccinated, and he did. But the issue that they have is Sale, Hope, Duran, and Crawford were in their system. And so it's much harder to force them to do it because you're not saying this huge contract is dependent on you doing it. it's just, to me, it's just, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand how a guy like Hope can talk out of one side of his mouth and say, I want to do everything for the team. I want to make sure the team can win, but I'm not going to get vaccinated. Well, then no, you don't care about whether or not the team wins. Like, your decision is more important than the team. And I just find it irritating. And I think that, again, in June, it may not cause a stink, but come September, I think it could really, really, really cause some problems.
You know, by the way, I couldn't agree with you more. The ultimate selfishness. We only have a minute left. Brittany Griner goes on trial in Russia on Friday.
Yes, on Friday. And they've now they've said they can detain her for up to 6 more months. And they're charging her on like to me, there needs to be some sort of diplomatic intervention here, because I forget now, it's escaping me, but something like 90 or 95% of cases tried in Russian court do not get acquitted.
Yeah, 1%.
99% guilty.
Her chance of getting acquitted and sent back cleanly to the United States is slim to none. So it really, unfortunately, it falls on the Biden administration to find a way to bring this poor woman home who's being used as a political pawn. And I saw one article call her a hostage. I think that's a fair assessment. She is being held hostage.
Yeah, and they're talking about drug trafficking, even if you believe, and I'm skeptical.
Vape cartridges. You know?
Yeah, and some of them were empty vape cartridges. Wasn't that the thing with some residue from the oil or something like that?
Well, it was fine until there was a problem with the United States.
Yeah.
So she is a hostage. That's exactly what she is.
So it's absolutely horrible. Okay,
Trenni, good to see you.
Thank you so much for being with us. Trenni Kusnierek is anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston. She's a BPR contributor. Coming up, we're going to be joined by the superintendent of the Boston schools for just a few more hours, actually, Brenda Cassellius. She's leaving in 2 days, but she joins us for an exit interview and to talk about how the Boston Public Schools could be better, her advice for the people that may succeed her. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are live at the Boston Public Library, and we'll be covering the hearings from 1 to 3 today.
The GBH Summer Membership Drive ends today. If you've yet to give, please make your contribution. Giving now will help pay for your Boston Public Radio listening in the months ahead. And you'll help us wrap up this membership drive successfully. gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424. I'm Andrew Outlaw, joined today by Mark Cohen.
And your time is quickly running out on this dollar-for-dollar match that we've been talking about all hour long. It's all thanks to some members of our GBH Members Matching Fund. They've put aside some money to encourage you to do your part. Every contribution now being matched dollar for dollar, but only for about the next 7 minutes. So the clock's starting to run down on this fantastic opportunity to have the power of your giving now going twice as far. This is the last dollar-for-dollar match of our membership drive, so if you've been waiting for the perfect time, can't get much better than this right now. Every contribution, any amount, will be matched dollar for dollar. Please do your part right now, 888-897-9424, or go online with your support. It'll be matched there as well. Look for the donate button at gbhnews.org.
Important news breaks and comes at us at all hours of the day, like this emergency hearing that'll be taking place at 1 p.m. And that means reporting work and resources behind all of this. Everything that you hear on GBH must be fueled by the people who listen. People like you. Your support during this membership drive is essential to all of the rewarding moments you spend in the company of GBH. GBH keeps you informed, engaged, inspired, and connected when you need it most. Call 888-897-9424, or you can give online at gbhnews.org.
And as our way of saying thanks for your contribution today of $10 a month or a one-time gift of $120, it's our last day offer. It's a great package, our GBH wireless earbuds and the brand new GBH dry bag. We love this dry bag. It's perfect if you're going out kayaking or anytime on a boat or just even out for a hike or camping and you figure it's going to get wet out there. You could throw so much stuff in the 5-liter pouch. You buckle it down, you roll it down, you buckle it up, and you're on your way. Everything stays nice and dry. The best feature on this, though, is the touch-through pouch, which we haven't talked about. What that is, it's a clear pouch. You could stick your phone in there, and if you need to access it to unlock it or send a text, you could do it through the bag itself. It actually works. We had a sample sent here, and it actually works. So that's a great feature. All that paired with our earbuds makes a great deal at $10 a month or $120, 888-897-9424. 9424, online at gbhnews.org.
And there's still time. You can double the buying power of your contribution, but only for the next 5 minutes, thanks to a generous group of GBH members. If you give $5 a month, they will donate the annual value of $60 to GBH. If you give $15 a month, that turns into $360 to help pay for your Boston Public Radio listening. One-time gifts are also being matched, but that dollar-for-dollar match is only available for a short time, going on 4 minutes now. 4 minutes left in it. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
This is the last day of our summer membership drive. We're actually ending it a little bit earlier to bring you coverage of the January 6th hearings. Our thanks to everyone who has already given. If you have yet to support GBH, you are running out of time. Make it known that Jim and Margery and everybody with Boston Public Radio right here on GBH is important to you by giving right now. You could do it online securely over at gbhnews.org or call us at 888-897-9424.
And it's really easy to make a contribution to GBH. You may think you don't have the time, but you do. The form is easy to fill out online. We ask for a bit of contact information and how much you'd like to give. You can also join our Sustainer program with a reoccurring monthly charge to your credit card or debit account, or you can make a one-time gift as well. No matter which you choose, it'll be one of the easiest things you do all day, and the payoff is GBH all day, every day. So please take those 2 minutes right now. You can go to gbhnews.org or give us a call at 888-897-9424.
Yeah, those couple of minutes right now really so important because every contribution being matched dollar for dollar, but only until noontime. So you got about 3 minutes left to go. This is the final dollar for dollar match of our membership drive. It's a great way to encourage you to put a value on all the listening that you've come to rely on here on GBH in the weeks and the months prior to this, and give as generously as you're able. Again, every contribution matched dollar for dollar, but only for the next 3 minutes. 888-897-9424, online at gbhnews.org.
And don't forget, when you make that gift of support to GBH today at $10 a month, we will thank you with our new dry bag and wireless earbuds, a special last day offer. The dry bag is waterproof with a buckle closure that doubles as a handle to keep your essential gear safe and dry from the elements. The dry bag is blue with the 89.7 logo in white. And as Mark had mentioned, it has that special window that you can access your smartphone through the dry bag. And it's being partnered up. It's being bundled together with our popular wireless earbuds. No cords, just the earbuds on their own. $10 a month on the Sustainer plan or a one-time gift of $120, but that deadline is 1 p.m. Call 888-897-9424. Ask for that last day offer, or you can give online at gbhnews.org.
Some quick thanks. Kathleen out in Lexington, thanks for taking the time to join us. Tom in Taunton, thank you so much for your generous gift today. And Alexander in Brockton taking the time to join us. We appreciate all your calls. If we haven't heard from you yet, please go to the phone now, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
All right, this is it. We are flicking the lights on that match. Last call to get your gift matched dollar for dollar right now during Boston Public Radio. You can call 888-897-9424 to take advantage of it. Get that call started, get that donation started online, and it will count. 888-897-9424, online at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you and Bunker Hill Community College, offering 6-week summer sessions for students looking to get ahead or learn a new skill. The next session starts July 18th. Registration is open. bhcc.edu/summer. And Swan Galleries with the auction Edward Hopper and His Contemporaries, Making a Modern American Art, on June 30th with prints, drawings, and paintings. Exhibition and auction information at swangalleries.com and on the Swan Galleries app.
Trusted. Local. News. This is 89.7 WGBH, WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
Ahead at Boston Public Radio, we're live at the Boston Public Library today. As Mayor Michelle Wu appears to have won the fight to keep city control of Boston Public Schools, for now at least, we'll be speaking with the outgoing superintendent, Brenda Cassellius, what she learned about the schools in her 3 years at the helm, and what her successor and the mayor need to know to fix what ails the district.
We'll check in on arts in and around Boston with GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen, including a particularly timely exploration of motherhood. And in what was a major surprise, the House Select Committee announced a new hearing on January 6th slated for 1 o'clock today. Former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows' aide, Cassie Hutchinson, is reported to be testifying, and we don't yet know what she and maybe others will reveal. That's all coming up. Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Courtney Keeley. A surprise hearing investigating the January 6th insurrection is scheduled to get underway next hour on Capitol Hill. NPR's Windsor Johnston reports the House Select Committee examining the attack was not expected to reconvene until next month, but lawmakers say they're planning to present recently obtained evidence and receive witness testimony today.
Cassidy Hutchinson, an aide to former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, will appear before the committee today. She was present during meetings between Meadows and several House Republicans who aided in then-President Donald Trump's pressure campaign to overturn the election. Hutchinson has been considered a key witness due to her proximity to Trump and Meadows. She previously appeared before the panel for a closed-door deposition, and her testimony has been featured in earlier hearings. Last week, the panel played a video clip of her testifying that Meadows and Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, had discussed putting forward fake slates of electors in swing states. Windsor Johnston, NPR News, Washington.
Authorities say the death toll of people found in a tractor trailer in San Antonio, Texas, is now 50 people. All are presumed migrants. Texas Public Radio's Joey Palacios reports others have been hospitalized for heat-related illnesses.
Authorities say the origin and destination of the trailer is unclear. San Antonio Police Chief Roy McManus says it was discovered by a worker from a nearby facility who heard cries for help.
Came out to investigate, found the trailer with the doors partially open, opened them up to take a look, and found a number of deceased individuals inside.
McManus says the investigation is now being led by Homeland Security. San Antonio is 150 miles from the border, and temperatures have been over 100 degrees since early June. The truck did not have a working AC unit, according to the San Antonio Fire Department. 3 people have been arrested, but their connection to the incident is uncertain. I'm Joy Palacios in San Antonio.
Planned Parenthood and the ACLU of Kentucky are challenging a so-called trigger law that prevents most abortions in the state. Karen Czar of member station WUKY reports the lawsuit comes just days after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the landmark Roe v. Wade decision.
A spokesperson with the ACLU of Kentucky says the state's trigger law banning most abortions violates Kentucky's Constitution, which, quote, provides for the rights of bodily autonomy, privacy, and self-determination, end quote. Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron vowed to fight the lawsuits, saying, quote, there is no right to abortion contained in the Commonwealth's Constitution.
Coco Gauff had a tough start and only converted 25 break points, but still managed to reach the second round. Many are rooting for her after she won the French Open last month. This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro in Brookline. Thanks to the bipartisan efforts of a group of U.S. senators, the Veterans Affairs Hospital in Northampton will not close. Veterans and advocates for the medical center cheered the news when it was announced this morning as the facility was slotted for closure as part of a nationwide assessment of Veterans Affairs healthcare facilities that was released in March. At the time, federal officials recommended that the hospital services be relocated into Springfield and Connecticut and local civilian doctors' offices. VA officials say a group of a dozen senators led by Senator Tom Tester of Montana blocked the appointment of members of the panel, putting the brakes on a years-long effort that started under former President Donald Trump to reorganize the VA system's hospitals and clinics. And it appears that a settlement on barrack-style housing in Provincetown could take place sooner than later. Lawyers on both sides of the issue are crafting a pact to settle a lawsuit filed by 4 P-Town residents against the town planning board and the Shank Painter Associates construction company. Last year, the 4 plaintiffs challenged that the project's design, which is meant to add housing for students and seasonal workers as well as year-round apartments, also challenged the bylaws associated with the project. And according to Shank Painter Associates CEO, a redesign is in the works. The barracks is one of 3 major housing developments in the Provincetown pipeline right now. In the forecast, sun, clouds, and 80 degrees today. We are at 76 in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include DuckDuckGo, committed to making privacy online simple. Used by tens of millions, they offer internet privacy with one download. DuckDuckGo, privacy simplified at duckduckgo.com.
It's your Friday. I am Margery Egan. You're listening to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we'll be back here again on Thursday, not Friday, because on Thursday, the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, will be with us. Excuse me.
And we are streaming. Did you say this on youtube.com?
I forgot to say that. Thank you.
I just said it. We're joined now at the Boston Public Library by the outgoing superintendent of the Boston Public Schools, Brenda Cassellius, looking very calm, I should say. I wonder why. Superintendent, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Jim. I'm glad to be on with you, Margery.
Well, thank you very much for being here, Superintendent. Well, let's start with this agreement that's been reached between Mayor Wu and the Commissioner of Education, Jeff Riley, a so-called 11th hour agreement to prevent the state from designating the district underperforming and taking over the district. What do you think of the agreement?
Well, I have always said that it takes all hands on deck to get this work done. It is some of the hardest and most worthiest work that we could do to improve outcomes for children. And so I've welcomed Commissioner Riley's support over these past 3 years, and look forward to the next superintendent really digging in even more with this new agreement.
One of the things that the phrase has been used over and over and over again is entrenched dysfunction of the Boston Public Schools. You came here, you were here for a while, you're leaving now. Now that you're leaving, what is that about? And we talked before we went on the air that the schools in Boston have been troubled for decades. Mm-hmm. What's the problem? I know there's a lot of problems, but if you look overall, what's the problem that causes this entrenched dysfunction that we seem to not be able to get out of?
Well, I think over many decades there's been a disinvestment in public schools, not just here in Boston, but across the nation, and tearing apart of the fabric and the confidence in our Boston public schools and also our nation's schools as a whole. And so I think rebuilding that confidence, building in the trust, and that means delivering on the promise of a quality guarantee, which are things that I tried to bring to Boston Public Schools. You have to have amenities that are worthy of the children who are in there, and tools for educators to actually get their jobs done, and supports for families and for children. And I think for far too long, those things have not been in place for Boston, which then makes the central office have to scurry around to try to Band-Aid this or Band-Aid that. I've been fortunate that former Mayor Walsh invested $100 million into the schools in an annual appropriation, and the city supported that, and that has been a blessing for us to get through this pandemic to ensure that those supports were in place.
When Margery and I were talking about this morning, about the state of the schools and the anticipation of you coming, a lot of the things you talk about, I don't want to say are soft. I didn't mean that in a pejorative way, meaning, they're not hard kinds of, well, let me give you a better example. One of the parts of this deal that was cut, I'm told at the end, was the city agreeing that there would be an outside auditor picked by the state to look at the data that comes out. When we read that in 5 of the last 7 years, and I think one was on your watch too, Superintendent, the graduation numbers were, I'm going to use the word cooked, and you can tell me if that's unfair, but they appear to have been cooked in a positive way. That is so troubling. Well, what's the deal?
So I think this is a misunderstood issue around the way that auditors work. So auditors come in, they uncover risk, and then you put in place controls. And I think that's the one thing that Boston Public Schools has been missing, is a risk management office. 2 years ago, I hired someone for this risk management office. Unfortunately, we put her in charge of the pandemic, so we weren't able to get that office up and running. But that's the key piece to being a continuously improving organization, so that you identify risk. You then put in place controls, you monitor those controls so that you continuously improve. So you do find these things. And so,
But the
back
graduation
in 2014,
numbers have been exaggerated
they
for
have-
5 of the last 7 years.
Well, what has happened is that our principals have to document when someone moves out of the city, and having that level of documentation that's needed can sometimes be very difficult when you have a highly mobile community. And so we had, they took a sample of 40 of our students from 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th, and 12th grade, and it wasn't just the cohort of the students who were graduating. So I think that that's misunderstood. So that data selection was looked at, and then they found that there were anywhere from 7 to 38 of those 40 who didn't have that documentation. It wasn't that the principals didn't know that that child supposedly, went back to the Dominican Republic. They knew that the family moved. They just couldn't secure the documentation for the auditor, so that, that was put in place. So that's what we are correcting now, to make sure that the principals and the schools are able to document and have that in our file system. So then we can say, yes, they actually did move to the Dominican Republic, and we have the proof that they did.
Would you, if you hadn't had this job and it were open now, which it will be until tomorrow night, in light of the term that you and Margery just talked about, the entrenched dysfunction, would you take this job?
I absolutely would take this job again. It has been an honor, and we got a lot of good things done for our kids, and I wouldn't take that back
What
for
do you
anything.
feel best about?
People ask me that all the time, and there's so many things I feel best about. And the one thing that just is so tangible for me is that kids are going to be drinking clean water.
Clean
I
water.
feel,
Oh, God.
I mean, it seems so basic, but I am so proud that I went and I said, Mayor Walsh, these kids aren't drinking clean water. Why are we trucking it in? And he gave the money for that. Clean buildings, we got 50 more custodians. I just think that these things matter when you're trying to raise your enrollment, and parents come in and they want to see clean buildings. They want to see, playgrounds, and they want to see science labs and art teachers, and we were able to put some of those things in place.
By the way, if people think, my kid, as you know, was in city here at Dever McCormick
That's
a bunch
right,
of years
yep.
ago. I went to visit her, and she said the kids couldn't drink the water. But when you hear that, and I think it is great you fixed it, do you not say to yourself, wait a second, if one of our first tasks is to make sure they can drink the damn water at a school, doesn't that feel like a mountain that can't be climbed? I mean,
Well, it was climbed, and we
I don't
climbed
mean
it
just
as
the
a
water.
community, but it's symbolic of what Margery was talking about when we first came, and the disinvestment and the deferred maintenance and the things that need to be cared for on a regular basis. And we need collectively to care for our children on a regular basis and do these check-ins and make sure that we are digging in on the things that do matter.
But one of the things we were talking about, City Councilor Andrea Campbell, who ran for a mayor and didn't win, but she was a big person on the school. She was from the Boston Public Schools. She went to Boston Latin. She's got little kids that are going to be in the Boston Public Schools. She said it wasn't about money. It was about how the money is used. And we were talking about beforehand how there is really not a middle class in the Boston Public Schools anymore. What is it? How many percent of the kids
About 80% of our students are high need.
Are high need. They're kids who come from poor or almost poor households. So those are two big, huge problems. But she said it wasn't about money. Is she wrong?
Well, I believe that money matters, and I do believe that it also matters how you use it. And so, we are good stewards of the public trust. We need to be responsible with that money. We need to be responsible with our data and transparent. And, I think that getting the money to those students who are most vulnerable is so critically important, and that's what we endeavored to do while I was superintendent in Boston.
So what do you say to?
Just,
I'm sorry.
Just
go
one of
ahead.
the things
Sure.
about that, though, one of the things that we've heard is kind of a cliche for decades about the Boston schools. You need to get the middle class back in the schools because it's not fair, but it is the way life works. It's harder for the kids, poor kids, and it's harder for their families to be lobbying and all that kind of stuff. We have a joke. I moved from Boston to Brookline, and we have a joke in Brookline. You have these mothers, they're the MBAs turned PTAs. They're the women that went to business school, and then they quit their job because their husband's making a lot of money, and they come micromanage the schools. There's not enough of those people probably to micromanage the schools. So how do you get the middle class to come back to the schools in Boston?
Well, so I just think the way that you get folks into the door is to have a quality guarantee and to show them the great work that's in our schools and the teachers who are doing amazing work with our youth, and the way that we support families. And so, if I'm a parent and I am a parent and I'm coming to a school, that first impression makes all the difference. And when you go in and you see paint chips coming off of the wall, or the school doesn't have a playground, you go, I just don't know. And so it's so critical to, with the Mayor's Green New Deal and the $2 billion investment, to continue to press upon the importance of that. And then once that's there, then you have the support pieces that we've been able to put in place with a nurse and a social worker, counselors, psychologists, family liaisons. They're going to provide the kind of wraparound supports that our families that we do serve now need in order to thrive.
We're talking to Brenda Cassellius, the outgoing superintendent of the Boston Public Schools. Have you spoken to Skipper and Welch, the two finalists?
Of course, I speak to Tommy all the time because he's on my team.
Oh, of course, he
yes,
is, right.
And Mary has been an incredible support to me as a superintendent.
Somerville superintendent.
Yes.
So what's the basic guide, based upon your experience, what's the most important thing you say to them, and what's the most important thing you say to Mayor Wu and the school committee about making this a success going forward?
Yeah, so I think, Boston is lucky to have two candidates who are really eager to support our students and our families. I've stayed out of that, obviously for good reason. And I wish them both just tremendous success, and we've set them up to do well, planted a lot of seeds. And I would say that, to Mayor Wu, whoever you pick, support them and, make sure that they have the resources that they need to get the work done for students, and really help them rally the political will to make some of the hard decisions.
When Margery asked Mayor Wu several months ago, I think it was right after it was announced that you were stepping down, and I'm paraphrasing, some of the criticism of mayors is they've been too involved. I wouldn't say Mayor Wu bristled, but she basically responded and say, that's exactly how involved I want to be. What is the right level? When should a mayor be intimately involved? Obviously not, doing all the detailed work. And when does she have to give room to his superintendent to do their job? Is that answerable? I don't know if it is.
Yeah, I think it is answerable. On the day-to-day things, superintendents are operationally responsible for doing that work. The school board chair is responsible for big policy, and I think that the mayors, and really the reason I took this job was mayoral controls. When you have those intractable, long-standing, difficult things that you have to do, you really need to rally the whole entire city around that, and that's when the mayor can be most useful. And then also getting your back when you have to make the really tough calls, right? And there's a lot of tough calls that need to be made in the Boston Public Schools, and so having a mayor stand up for you and get your back, I think is going to be critical in the next couple of years.
Is there anything you were dying to do that either Walsh or Wu wouldn't let you do?
No, actually, exam schools is something that I really wanted to get done, and that was about timing. And Mayor Walsh at the time was incredibly supportive, came on the school committee call, realized we were in a time and a moment to make a difference, to make a more equitable policy for admissions, and I'm very proud of that.
We're talking with Boston Public School Superintendent Brenda Cassellius. We're going to keep talking to her after this quick pledge break. We're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
If you listen to Boston Public Radio 3 hours a day, that's 15 hours a week, 60 hours a month, and 720 hours a year. Maybe it's time you pitched in. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
I think Elizabeth from Plymouth, Margery, who made a donation this morning, speaks for all of our listeners when she says, love Margery, and I guess Jim, too. I think that is pretty much the sentiment, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, I think a couple of people were impressed that I could add 125 and 125 to get to 250.
Fall River Public Schools.
It was not easy.
So here's the deal. This is the last day of the pledge drive. In fact, it is the last hour of the pledge drive. 40 minutes, and it is done, and it's done at 1 o'clock rather than 7 because we thought it was really important. And I assume you agree to bring you the hearings, the January 6th committee hearings, day 6, live at 1 o'clock, and again, 40 minutes. So this is your last opportunity, this drive, to go for it, and we hope you do it. 888-897-9424. gbhnews.org.
So it was actually Joanne from Raymond who said Margery figured math out well, worth $10. So we appreciate that very much, Joanne. And Ann from Jamaica Plain, hear what she said, Jim?
No.
Jim, you guilted me into it.
Well, that's okay. You're the one who said, what did you say before? You don't want people to be freeloaders?
Freeloaders.
I mean,
That's
obviously,
right.
if you're listening, you think you get a decent amount. You're listening to the superintendent today. You're going to listen on Thursday to an hour of Mayor Wu. On Friday, the day that the overturning of Roe came down, we had the Attorney General with us for an hour. We hope there are a lot of things you find of value here, not just on our show, but from our colleagues as well.
That's right, and people are very impressed. Christine from Cambridge among them, who says it's so important that we're airing the hearings here. Without the programming and free press, there would be no free democracy. And Christine says she's also a fan of ours. She's probably one of your neighbors there over there in Cambridge.
Maybe.
So anyway, Jim, we mentioned before that we have a great gift for sustainers. That's a $10 a month or more contribution. We have two gifts today, both the GBH wireless earbuds and the GBH dry bag, just in time for summer and going to the beach. The blue bag, I'll hold it up. It's on
disappeared.
YouTube.
Oh, there she is.
There it
Thank
is.
you.
There it is. It's right there. And in the back of it is, I guess, clear plastic.
It is.
And you can put all the stuff inside that you need to keep dry and sand-free when you go to the beach. And also the earbuds, which are absolutely great. I got them a few years ago. I lost them, unfortunately.
Day one.
But I did have them for one day, and they
One
were
day. While
they
she
were
had
fa-
them, she loved them.
I love them while I had them. And we do really appreciate whatever people can give, because these are difficult times now with the gas prices and inflation and everything else. But if you listen to us often and you like what you hear, 24/7 here on GBH, we appreciate whatever you can give. The number again, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim, Brady, Margery, live at the Boston Public Library. We're talking to outgoing Superintendent Brenda Cassellius. Before Margery asks you a question, I just want to say, by the way, thank you. There are a lot of people in your position through the years who, when times have gotten tough, are busy when they're supposed to be with us. You have always made yourself available, which not only matters to us, but I know it matters a lot to the people who listen, so we thank you for that.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, Superintendent Cassellius, I wonder if it matters, you think, for the next superintendent that they're local. I mean, much has been made of the fact that, Tommy Chang came from California, you came from the middle of the country. Not that Boston is necessarily unique, but maybe there's some politics that people who live here are more familiar with than those who came in from far away. Do you think that's going to be a help?
I do think it helps to know your context and what you're coming into, and certainly knowing Boston does help. But I do think you can also do things as someone who's new to the city to get to know the city quickly. I came in. I went to all 125 schools within 100 days, which people thought was maybe like some sort of showstopper. But it set me up to be successful with the pandemic. I cannot imagine having led without first understanding from the community what their needs were, and also the conditions of our buildings, so that I could advocate in the way that would keep our kids safe and healthy.
Who's the biggest a-hole you had to deal with in your 3 years? Now, Superintendent, in a moment of seriousness, then we want to talk about you for a second.
I'm not going to answer that.
There were 4 finalists, from what I understand, and the 2 finalists, one of whom was black, one of whom was Latino, dropped out. Do you have any idea why they dropped out?
I do not. Like I said, really, I have stayed out of the search. I go off the calls when they discuss it on the school committee.
And even if you think well of Skipper Welch, one of whom will end up being the superintendent as of tomorrow night, do you worry about what they're going to meet with parents who feel that in a school community that is overwhelmingly black and Latino, that the final 2 candidates were neither?
Again, I do worry about all of those racial politics. If you didn't, then you really wouldn't be honest, right? I think that it's important, though, that they go in and ingratiate themselves with the community quickly and go in and talk about their vision and listen and talk with particularly the communities of color. And establish relationships again. Even Tommy and Mary both have established relationships. Mm-hmm. It'll be important that they go outside of their comfort zone and that they go into communities that maybe they're not as familiar with and get to know them right away.
What are you doing?
What am I doing? What?
I don't mean right now. What are you doing?
I'm talking to you, Jim.
What are you doing as of Friday?
I will be at my cabin in Minnesota like a good Minnesotan, and probably on a kayak somewhere reading a book.
Do you know what you're doing next, or no?
I do not. I've had a couple of inquiries, but I'm going to take some time to discern where God wants my path to lead, and I will follow that path. I'm sure it's going to be making a difference for children in some way.
You know, you wrote about the trials and tribulations and really the horrors in many ways of dealing with the schools and the pandemic. Tell us a little bit about that, what you wrote in the Washington Post, too, about the toll on teachers and kids.
Yeah, you know, and so we need a whole entire campaign and hands on deck to ensure that there's a teacher in every single one of our school classrooms next year, that we have a bus driver to drive every bus, that we have a cook to cook our food so we have fresh meals. All of that is critical to the overall wholeness and wellness of our students and getting them what they need. And so I am very, very worried about the pandemic and what happened in terms of teacher exhaustion, overall staff and employee exhaustion during this time. If that COVID raise, comes up at this, and there's some sort of variant that happens this summer, I'm very worried that we could have some significant shortages. So let's just hope that those numbers continue to dip in the right direction.
You know, Boston's now a majority-minority school system. Busing was originally about racial inequities. We've talked for years in Boston about trying to get more neighborhood schools because it enables parents to be families to be living around the school so your neighbor can pick up your kid at school. It's easy for mom and dad to get to the meetings at the school, the whole 9 yards. How far is that away from ever happening in Boston?
So as a parent who never put her kids on a school bus, because I always went into the school, I had my kids go to the school in the neighborhood, so they walked just a few blocks to school. I realized how important it was to my own sense of community and how I felt about the safety of my own children going to school back and forth. And, walkable schools are absolutely incredible when you can guarantee that the quality of the school in their neighborhood is excellent, right? And so that's what we have to show to parents for them to trust us and to sending the child to the school that's right in their neighborhood, particularly if it's a school that has had significant difficulty in the past. You have to show them before they will vote with their feet and put their child in the school. And so I think that that is something that the next superintendent's really going to have to take on, because there's nothing like having kids be able to, your own children go to a school that's right in your community and building their lifelong friendships and, other neighbors taking care of making sure they get home safe.
And obviously, you're an educator, you know all about this. I've often heard people say in Boston and elsewhere that one of the things, particularly in the elementary school, that can turn a troubled school around is a great principal.
It is.
And why is that?
Because leadership matters. It matters in everything. There's like the law of the lid. You can have a whole group of excellent teachers in a school building, but if you have a lousy principal, forget it. It's going nowhere because they make the decisions, and if they don't include the teachers in those decisions, then the school just flounders. And so you have to have both. And so it's really, really critical that they work as a team around the culture and climate of the school and engaging with the community and the parents within it so that children are succeeding.
Go ahead.
Is the toll as bad on school leadership principals as it's been on teachers?
And worse this year. Principals have been on the forefront, and I am so grateful to our principals in Boston Public Schools who have been absolutely amazing. And there's been shifting conditions. There's been, changing decisions from the CDC and new requirements with PPE and new requirements with vaccines, and all of the angst that we have, felt and that I've felt as superintendent. Principals have had to carry because they have to actually implement it. And so I am forever grateful to our educators and to our principals for just stepping up in ways that have been quite extraordinary.
Huge superintendent turnover, as Paul Revel told us too. We only have a minute left. When we met you, one of the first things we learned about you is you're a big hockey player. You're not going to say you're a serious ice hockey player. So what's with the cabin in the woods? I mean, what is that like? The wilderness kind of thing in Minnesota?
No, it's actually, we have 15,000 lakes in Minnesota, and, I just, everybody wants to go and be on those. As for hockey, I plan on putting my hockey team back together again. We're called the Lunastics. So,
I love that, actually.
The loon is the Minnesota bird, and so, it's kind of fun. It's just great to get together with other women and just have a lot of fun.
Brenda Cassellius, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for your service to the city, and we hope you stay in touch. Thanks so much.
Thank you for a lot of hard work during a very difficult time, and we very much appreciate your coming in to speak with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good luck. That was the Boston School Superintendent Brenda Cassellius, and thank you again for being with us. Coming up, GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen is here. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7.
Boston Public Radio. Live, local conversations. Every day brought to you by listener support. Now it's your turn to keep the conversation going with a contribution in any amount. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
So here's the deal, Margery. It is, she's talking to Jared, totally unprofessional. No, it is 28 minutes left till the end of Pledge. It's going to happen on our show, and it's happening 6 hours early, obviously because we're bringing you the hearings live, which virtually everybody who's commented on it feels is really important, because it is. And if you feel it's as important as it is, now's the time to make a contribution. If you haven't, we hope you do it at 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. The wireless earbuds are great. The dry bag is terrific. For $10 a month, you get both, or $120 all at once. But as I've said 1,000 times, hopefully that's not why you give. It's sort of a nice extra kind of thing. You give because you respect and depend upon the work that our colleagues do so brilliantly here at GBH. So we really urge you to take the time, if you haven't already, in the final 27 minutes of this drive, to call 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
I don't know where I'm supposed to be putting this bag.
Right
Oh,
at the
there it
camera,
is. Okay,
yeah.
there's the bag right there.
Wow,
Very
excellent,
nice.
Margery.
And see in the back,
It's
it's
like
all the
Vanna
plastic.
White.
I know. I do feel a little bit like Vanna White.
Yes.
And here are the earbuds.
Oh, my God.
Voila. So they're very nice. These are the two gifts that we're offering today for a $10 a month contribution, which is a little bit easier on your wallet than giving a big chunk all at once, and we usually appreciate that. But as we always say, it's this, this is the last day of the fund drive today. It's over today. It's going to be over at 1 o'clock because we're giving you the important news of the hearings that are going to start at 1 o'clock, and Jim and I will be monitoring those from 1 to 3, and then it's going to go to NPR. But we're not doing our usual fundraiser today because of the big breaking news, and we've done that earlier in the week. So without this, you would have commercials, and commercials, Jim and I used to work in commercial radio, and you could really eat a 3-course meal during the commercial breaks because they were so long. You don't have that because of your generosity and because most of our money comes from you. So this is it. This is the last day of the pledge drive, at the last hour, really, of the pledge drive, because we're ending at 1 o'clock. So whatever you feel you can give, we really, really appreciate it. If you've already given, we much appreciate that. If this isn't a good time for you because everything's so expensive now, we get it. But if you are in a position to give, that would be wonderful. We want to say Eric in Providence sent a nice little note to us, Jim. He said, love GBH, love Jim and Margery. You guys, we're the coolest. We're the coolest.
Obviously not talking about
Yeah,
me,
I
but
don't
go
know
ahead.
how cool we are. But anyway, he says, we guys are the coolest, and the reason I'm a grumpy dad of my friend group, James and Gloucester. We love all things NPR, especially likes Jim and Margery's show. Maggie and Jim from Smithfield say you help keep us sane and well-informed. Your guests are outstanding sources of needed information. So the number is 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim, Brenda, Margery, live from the Boston Public Library, 25 minutes away from the January 6th, Day 6 hearing. We are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News, and I'm supposed to tell you back at the library on Thursday for Ask the Mayor with Mayor Wu. Joining us now is the man who Margery was unprofessionally talking to during pledge. He is partially responsible for that breach of protocol. He is GBH's executive arts editor, Jared Bowen. He joins us now to talk about the arts and culture events around Greater Boston and to apologize for distracting Margery during the pledge. Go ahead.
We had a lot to catch up
We
on.
did.
But I apologize for distracting.
Okay,
we were gossiping
I'm
about.
sorry that I'm so riveting. So for that, I deeply apologize.
Exactly. I just couldn't. I couldn't help myself, Jared. I just couldn't help myself. But anyway, let's get back to your stuff. This designing motherhood at the at Mass Art, I think, could not be more perfectly timed because people obviously are thinking a lot about motherhood in these days, with Roe being outlawed in so many states across the country. So what's going on?
Yeah, so this is an exhibition called Designing Motherhood, Things That Make and Break Our Births. And so I toured this a few weeks ago. Of course, at that point, we knew that in all likelihood this ruling was coming down from the Supreme Court. And I had talked to the curator, Michelle Miller-Fisher, about this, and Lisa Tung, the director of the museum, and they said, well, of course, these issues are always timely. They always have urgency. But what the interesting backstory to this is that they had been wanting to do this piece, Michelle in particular, looking as a design historian, looking at this for a long time. And most museums, most curators, most directors wouldn't do it. They didn't think there was much interest there. They didn't see the value of this. Now, of course, I think this is why we can be so proud of the Mass Art Museum, is that they have taken this show and it's now on view, and it takes us through this span of pregnancy and the history of pregnancy and design in that regard. By the way, the Mass Art Museum is free. We always love to point that out. And this exhibition is on view through December 18th. So it takes us through the exam, through the process and the means of reproduction, through delivery, postpartum, milk, the temporary body, and the clothing design. And as Michelle also pointed out to me, in a lot of cases you are finding people without uteruses designing for people with uteruses. And so you see how design has changed and how just atrocious some of these designs were, and what they did to women until women finally had a voice and had a say in what was being done to their bodies in terms of pregnancy and reproduction. And woven into this exhibition, you'll also find artists like Jess T. Dugan, a photographer who documents family, Allison Croney Moses, a wood sculptor in our area who sculpted her pregnant belly, also somebody we've all spoken with, Tabitha Soren, and her photography looking at these issues as well. And it all comes together, it coalesces in this look at design around these issues.
Did you say you saw this before, I assume, before the Roe overruling on Friday?
I did, but very much through that lens, because we knew, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, but do you think the exhibit, how different do you think the exhibit is seen as a result of the context in which it's now being presented?
Well, I can tell you, if I were to go back, I was looking at it pretty acutely, knowing this was coming down. I think I would spend even more time there now, really understanding, because there's so much history that's told here too, through advertising, through some of the means that women had to orchestrate their own abortions, or what they suffered through IUDs that left them septic. And
or unable to have children.
Exactly.
Yep.
So these things had to happen in order for design to get where it should be, which just seems so logical, but of course it hasn't been.
You know, I love the picture of the nursery monitor. This is from like the 1970s or something, a nursery monitor. Now they're very high tech, and you can see a little baby right in the little bassinet there with the cameras and everything. But you know what I loved about...
Can I just pause you for 1 second?
Yes.
You know what I learned about this? That it was the Lindbergh baby kidnapping that launched the design and the interest in having monitors for children. Yeah.
I did not know that,
you
because the baby was taken right from the crib, right? But
By the way, you got to be nuts to have a child monitor. Did you have one when your kids were young?
A child monitor?
Yeah, all you're doing is in panic all day long looking at the damn thing. I mean, it's ridiculous. But go ahead,
I don't
sorry.
remember. I blotted it out. But you know what I love about this, particularly doing this now, is because when you talk to, you know, my oldest daughter just had her first baby, and I know other people that I'm close to just had first babies, and it's overwhelming. They are just beside themselves because it's so much work at the beginning, and they can't understand how people do it that don't have help or don't have family and stuff. And they realize how the whole, and you see this in Roe, the whole pregnancy, it's just kind of, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Even though many women get very ill, there's a very high mortality rate in the United States, particularly bad among women of color. I mean, it's because women do it and men can't do it. The whole difficulty of it is kind of underestimated. And so I just love that they're doing this now to talk about all these different things. I mean, I love that they've got a bunch of breast pumps in there, too. That's hysterical. If people knew how you had to breast pump 30 years ago, they would be so horrified.
Well, and there's actually a sculptor who has created a piece too that reflects on basically the production of milk, and I believe you're not seeing the actual milk, of course, but you're getting a sense of how much work is just entailed there and what's actually produced.
Yeah.
And to your point, I think that's what makes this even more interesting is that you see the range of design, the whole span of design, and how many things have to be designed for pregnancy and what this means and all of the different ways on which it can have an impact. By the way, there are some beautiful nipple shields too.
There you go.
There are some things that are done with this beautiful artistic bent as sculpture in and of themselves.
I wonder what they were. Now I figured it out.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
What are they?
I saw you looking through them.
Yeah, they're kind of like, they're sort of brass with...
Yes.
Yes.
And there's one that has sort of a Jeff Koonsian aesthetic to it. He's
They're here
the
somewhere.
big pop contemporary
I've
designer.
lost it.
Okay, while you're looking
artist.
for the nipple, whatever, can we? I would assume. I don't know about you, Margery, but Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh my God.
Maybe read maybe 1,000 times to my kids, and I'm assuming everybody listening. Maurice Sendak, and we learned a little something different. I mean, everybody knows the book. Everybody knows him as this brilliant illustrator and writer of kids' books. But there was another side to Sendak on display here, yes?
Yeah, so he'd been creating since he was 19 years old and creating picture books. He never called them children's books, by the way.
I didn't know
he
that.
Called them, he was very adamant that they're picture books because he felt that they were universal for all audiences. And he had been doing that since he was 19. And so there's a great quote from the catalog. He said that 50 is a good time to either change career or have a nervous breakdown. And so apparently he didn't have the nervous breakdown because what he did is morph into something that he was so passionate about, and that was theater and opera design. So at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum right now, on view through September 11th, we find Drawing the Curtain, Maurice Sendak's designs for opera and ballet. And he takes that same aesthetic, the same passion that he had for books like Where the Wild Things Are, which he did later turn into a theater piece, an opera piece.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He did?
Yeah. And he channeled that into scenic design. And so in this really, really engaging show at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, you walk in and immediately you're met with music. So you hear music. You immediately walk into a fraction of one of his sets with the set pieces, and then you see the illustrations for costume designs. He storyboarded his operas just like a film director would, envisioning everything, and had a hand in the set design, the costumes, how the costumes would work. If you think of Where the Wild Things Are, there are these creatures, and sometimes they involved 3 people in one costume, 150-pound costumes. But this was all lived in his head, and we see it spill out. But we also learned that he listened to music passionately. He really couldn't create music couldn't create his illustrations without music. And he is somebody who harkened back to Art Deco and to Egyptian aesthetics and to the Renaissance masters, and that all comes to the fore. And he would be unapologetic about it, talking about who he was stealing from in his designs. We see this
how
all
long's
here.
that there?
Through September 11th. And so you see his designs for the Magic Flute, Love for 3 Oranges, the Nutcracker, and Where the Wild Things Are. By the way, he fills the Nutcracker with sort of cameos, images of himself as the Nutcracker, and images of himself as in drag as Mother Ginger, because he was also somebody who never came out publicly until he was 80 years old.
I didn't know. Until he was 80?
Until he was 80. Well, you think of the time in which he came up, and he just didn't feel comfortable. He was out to his friends and family, but...
We're talking to GBH's Jared Bowen. We'll be right back to talk to him some more after this pledge break. You are listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Think about it. For 3 hours every day, you get to hear thought-provoking conversations on local, national, and international issues for free. It only happens with your support. So please support your Boston Public Radio listening by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
Yeah, that touches on something that we don't talk enough about. We always talk about you and me, Jim. There's a lot of programming on here.
There is?
We got Paris and Jeremy in the morning. We have Arun Roth in the afternoon. We have NPR, all the great NPR shows that are on the weekend. I love On the Media. I listen to On the Media every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock because, of course, I am in the media. It's a critique of the media, what the media is doing right, what the media is doing wrong, quiz shows. I mean, there's just a lot of great stuff.
Callie.
Callie Crossy, that's right. Every Sunday night at 6 o'clock is her great show. So there's a lot going on here, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not just us, obviously. So if you are listening to this show, and never mind 15 hours a week, but those times you're back and forth in your car, going to the supermarket, whatever, and you'd like to give to support that listening, this is your opportunity. It's the last day of this membership drive. It's the last 15 minutes of the membership drive this time around because we're ending it 7 hours early or 6 hours early, I guess, because of the hearings that start at 1 o'clock. So here's the number, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
By the way, don't let Margery fool you. She doesn't give a damn about the other shows. She cares about this show. She cares about her and me. And she wants you, well, today you have to contribute during our show at 888-897-9424. You only have a couple of seconds left. I want to say, and I say this, I hope people know it's true. I know I speak for Jared, for Margery, for me, for the people who work with us on our show. It means a huge amount to us.
It does.
When you decide in difficult financial times to make a contribution of any amount. So on behalf of everybody who works at this station, all of whom are happy that we're here, we thank you for your generosity. Please call 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're 14 minutes away from the scheduled beginning of day 6 of the January 6th hearing. But in the interim, we are speaking with Jared Bowen, Executive Arts Editor at GBH.
So tell us about the sculpture walk over at the Charlestown Navy Yard.
I love this kind of thing.
And this is perfect for the 4th of July holiday.
Yeah.
You want to be on the water, you want to be in the city, you want to be around lots of people, hopefully just mingling and enjoying and finding this brilliant sculpture on the water. So this is an exhibition that was just unveiled last week. It's called Of Many Minds. It's all sculpture of the work of Michael Alfano. And he has been sculpting for decades now. And I think his backstory is really interesting. He was a stockbroker. And
Really?
he decided that this wasn't really what he wanted to do. So years and years ago, he was hitchhiking across the country and at one point landed in Utah and landed on the fact that he should be a sculptor and didn't have any formal art training at that point. But I think it makes sense when you see his work, if you've been to that part of the world and you see the natural sculpture in Utah and Moab and Canyonlands and the great national parks, like arches, then you see where it comes to the fore. So then he goes to the Art Students League of New York, where people like George O'Keeffe, Jackson Pollock, Ai Weiwei, they all went and started creating sculpture. And so here you see it all along the Harbor Walk in Charlestown, and even in the Navy Yard. So if you're coming in that way, right by the USS Constitution, you'll find one of his first sculptures, which is really him. You see a paint can with yellow paint splashing down, and his face is in it. And then you just wind your way along the Harbor Walk and encounter sculpture after sculpture. And they're pretty large scale, and they all invite some discussion and thinking and kind of interrogation. Each one is accompanied by a quote. He told me that as he's creating, he lands on some sort of quote. Like one I wrote down just to give you a sense is by Jesse Jackson: "We must be pulled by our dreams rather than our memories." It's of this face that's kind of, it's just brilliant that even though it wasn't created to be positioned along the harbor, you see this face that just seems to be propelled forward. But there are sort of these abstract notions of faces too, something out of Salvador Dali or something like that. You move further down, you see a quote by Amanda Gorman, with someone's feet planted firmly in the ground and their face and their head, the rest of their body tending toward the clouds. And they've planted a plant, I actually ran by there this morning, that will grow up over the course of this exhibition, or at least part of it, because I should mention it's on view through December 2023, so I'm not sure the garden will survive through the winter. But this is all coordinated by the Navy Yard Garden and Art Group, who has brought this sculpture. And there's a bench. On one side you find a dove, the other side a hawk. You sit there, you look at that imbalance, and as I say, he gives you a lot to contemplate.
I love benches. And let me just say one more thing. I have a question for you. Could you list some of the great artists who started out as stockbrokers? Who are some of the others who fall? How did he make the transition? I love that. You know, Margery, I love these. I don't know if it was mid-career or not. I love people who have of course, it's easier when you're a stockbroker, I guess, than somebody making a normal. How did he make the transition? Do you know what the deal was? Why did he make the transition?
He just knew it wasn't for him. I think it's a really good question because
Done screwing his clients, he decided he wanted to
yeah,
serve
exactly.
some art?
Yeah, that was probably it. There was a lawsuit. No, I'm just kidding. There is not. I think, but there are a number of people who did that. I'm kind of a little bit obsessed with Julia Child right now because of the HBO series and then the CNN documentary, and I'm just fascinated by the fact that 50 years old is when she got this conviction.
It's amazing.
And not that it happened overnight by any stretch, because we know she took years to write Mastering the Art of French Cooking, and then just so aggressively pursued a television show at GBH. I think, of course, this is the other reason that I'm so invested in this story, because it's our hometown story and our homework story, but that she made it happen at 50. I just find that so compelling and interesting.
So, Jared, because we're a little short on time because the hearing's coming up, what are you doing Friday?
We are sitting down with some of the team behind A Beautiful Noise, which is the Neil Diamond musical that has just opened at the Colonial. It's going to Broadway, so we'll take you behind the creation of that musical. We sit down with John Waters. I know you spoke with him recently. He's hilarious. And then the artist, the multimedia artist, Daniel Callahan, about the upcoming Mask Ball 2022, which is happening. He's developed this whole process of masking, painting people's faces and having identity come out and looking at the origin of identity in this process of masking. And now there'll be this fabulous ball happening at the Arnold Arboretum in the Groves. And so we talked to him about that.
Two kinds of people in the world, those who love Neil Diamond and those who hate him.
That's right.
Depending on which side you're on, what's that called? A Beautiful Noise.
A Beautiful Noise.
Beautiful
Good
noise.
to see you, Jared Bowen.
Jared,
Good to
thank
see
you very much.
Thank
Sorry
you.
we were short on time with pledge break. Eats up some time. But we're done with pledging in just a few minutes. It's done at 1 o'clock because we're going to be right back at 1 o'clock for the hearings. Jared Bowen is GBH Executive Arts Editor, and hope very much for being with us. When we get back, we're going to have the hearings starting at 1 after this quick pledge break.
And the number to call is 888-897-9424 or donate online at gbhnews.org. The drive was to go until 7 o'clock tonight, but it is ending at 1. We will not be back even when the hearings end. There's so much to unpack and so much going on. But we are asking for your help right now. We're so close to raising all the dollars that we need for this drive to keep us in the news in the weeks and months ahead. With your help, we will do that. Give us a call right now. Let me say the number again, 888-897-9424 or online at gbhnews.org. I'm Jack Callahan along with Mark Cohen.
That's right. Our fundraising ends at 1 o'clock, just about 8 minutes from now, and that's also the deadline to get in on this great last day offer. It's a great pairing, our GBH wireless earbuds and the brand new GBH dry bag. It's summertime. You're going to be going outside on a kayak or on a hike or camping. This dry bag is the perfect companion for you. It's a 5-liter bag. You can put your phone, your wallet, your camera, extra layers of clothes in there, fold it down, buckle it up, and you're on your way. The best part about it, it has this great touch-through pouch. You could slide your phone in there and access it through the bag, even if it's wet. We had a sample of it, and it actually works. It's a great feature. Paired up with our earbuds, $10 a month, such a deal. $10 a month or a one-time gift of $120. Time running out, though. This is our last day offer. Goes away at 1 o'clock. So what do you say? 888-897-9424 or go online, gbhnews.org.
Listening to NPR and GBH gives you this broader, deeper understanding of issues that affect our community and our country. What better example of the 3 hours you spend each weekday here on Boston Public Radio with Jim and Margery? We find out about people and stories that never would have crossed our minds without GBH. This station is one of your best resources for staying connected and educated about what's happening around us. It's all possible because of listener support. Please take the few moments in these final minutes of the drive and make it a success. Call 888-897-9424 or online at gbhnews.org.
And we're encouraging you to sign up as a sustaining member to GBH. Whether you're new to the station or you've been an annual member for years, it really is the best way to financially support the NPR and GBH news that you trust. Really easy to set up with your bank account or with your credit card. We just need a little contact information and that monthly amount that fits your budget. And that's it. Really just takes a couple of minutes of your time, so please take those couple of minutes right now to enroll. 888-897-9424. It's just as easy to sign up online. Look for the donate button over at gbhnews.org.
I want to thank Kim from Foxborough for making a contribution just a few minutes ago. She said, "This is thanks to Jim and Margery for helping me every day. I would not be able to find my way out of a paper bag without you." Yes, please let people on the air know how I feel. Well, we just did. Please join her right now. Call 888-897-9424 or do it online at gbhnews.org in these waning minutes of the strive.
And once again, today at 1 o'clock, GBH will bring you what will be the 6th hearing on the January 6th attack on the Capitol. This is an unscheduled hearing, and as has been the case this entire membership drive, the fundraising will stop to bring you NPR's live coverage of this essential news event. And since this is the last day of the drive, we're just going to end it fully at 1 o'clock instead of 7 p.m. So many thanks to our listeners who have already given. NPR and GBH are able to cover these history-making events. So if you haven't yet, please do your part to keep this coverage coming by giving at gbhnews.org or calling us 888-897-9424.
Oh, a friend from Chestnut Hill just came on board and said, "I wanted to give during this hour because I listen to Jim and Margery almost every day. I also thank you for shortening the drive so you can cover the upcoming hearing." I really appreciate it. Well, you know what? We had no choice. We would do that anyway. News does come first, but we still do need those dollars. The goal hasn't changed, so your help right now will go a long way. 888-897-9424 or online at gbhnews.org. Just a few minutes to go.
Just a quick thanks to some of our newest members to the GBH family. Aaron in West Greenwich, Rhode Island, thank you so much. Ronald in Plymouth, Josiah down in Provincetown, thank you all for taking that first step, becoming a new member. That's what this membership drive is all about. And we are ending it at 1 o'clock. So if you haven't yet, please go to the phone, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
We have the most awesome GBH listeners ever. We are at the goal for the day 6 hours early. People get it here. Call 888-897-9424 or online at gbhnews.org. Thank you on behalf of everyone at GBH and especially the BPR team right now. 888-897-9424.
The ruling is in.
The U.S. Supreme Court has overturned the constitutional right to an abortion. It reverses Roe v. Wade.
Now, let's talk about it.
What does this mean for abortion rights in Massachusetts?
I'm Margery Egan.
I'm Callie Crossley.
And I'm Paris Alston. We're hosting a community conversation.
Join us Thursday starting at 2 here on GBH 89.7
and streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News.
Trusted, local news. This is 89.7 WGBH, WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Margery Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library. We'll be here again on Thursday. That is this coming Thursday for Mayor Wu. Ask the Mayor. 3 hours here at the Boston Public Library. We're about 2 minutes away from at least the scheduled beginning of Day 6 of the January 6th hearings. As all of you know, there were to be no more hearings until July, and then all of a sudden, with about 24 hours notice, it was announced to be a special hearing today. For the first few hours, no one had any idea who any of the witnesses would be, at least if one witness, we don't know if there are more, is Cassidy Hutchinson, who was a West Wing aide for Mark Meadows, the chief of staff for the president at the time, Donald Trump. And according to her earlier testimony, which we've heard some of at least, she was in the room where it happens, meaning the Oval Office, when a lot of decisions and discussions went on about fake electors, false electors, pardons for members of Congress, her boss theoretically burning some documents, Margery.
I know.
Mark Meadows, and the unanswered question so far, well, we don't know what she's going to say today, but the other unanswered question was, what was the rush? Why couldn't she just testify when the hearings reconvene at their expected time sometime in July?
Well, there was a speculation, and it's just speculation, that there was some threats involved, or there was some fear about her, which is really unfortunate. She's 25 years old. She's a very young woman to be taking this young burden on her shoulders. She's also switched attorneys which many are speculating is part of the reason that she has been more forthcoming more recently. Or maybe she got different advice from her attorney than she got from the first attorney. But we don't know what she's going to say, more than she's already said. We don't know about what this danger is. We don't know why the rush. And I think you said before, Jim, that she has testified already that Donald Trump was approving of the chance of hang Mike Pence, which is really quite horrible.
Well, I don't think we know yet that she's the source. They believe she is the source of that. And remember in the first hearing, Liz Cheney said somebody is going to say, oh, is that actually so?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know we heard that so far.
Yeah,
My apologies.
Well, according to the New York Times, she has already informed the committee that...
Oh, informed the committee. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that Meadows told colleagues about Trump approving of the hang Mike Pence. And she also talked about the people asking for pardons. My favorite one is Matt Gaetz, who asked for a pardon for his whole life. You know, he's been
for good reason, by the way.
He's been under investigation for soliciting sex from underage women, which would be girls. But I guess he had some problems maybe before that he was worried about, so he wanted to get a blanket pardon.
You know, one of the things about today, I mean, you remember the line, Jamie Raskin, who's a member of the committee who hasn't had his day yet, constitutional scholar, and again, as I say, one of the impeachment leaders on the second impeachment of Donald Trump. He was the one who was responsible for the quote, we're going to blow the roof off the House of Representatives. And some critics think that he raised expectations too much for the hearings, even though I think they've been very consequential and very important. Having said that, I don't think the stakes could be any higher than calling a special hearing on 24 hours notice when you said you were in recess till July, calling people back into town. And from what I understand, the committee was in one of those secure locations this morning, which is rather chilling in some ways. Cassidy Hutchinson is walking into the hearing room, the House hearing room, as we speak. She appears to be, as of the moment, the only witness. I assume she's with counsel. By the way, her first lawyer from whom she switched, Margery, was an ethics lawyer for Donald Trump. Talk about oxymorons, I should say. That's the ultimate. She switched to another lawyer. She's the only person, other than people who appear to be counsel, who are taking seats. In fact, she's the only person taking a seat at the table. Benny Thompson, the chair of the committee, is now moving in, as are the other 8 members of the committee. So we're just seconds away. In fact, there's the gavel, and in a couple of seconds, we will hear day 6
Select Committee to
of these hearings
investigate the
begin.
January 6th attack on the United States Capitol will be in order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare the committee in recess at any point. Pursuant to House Deposition Authority Regulation 10, the chair announces the committee's approval to release the deposition material presented during this hearing. Good afternoon. In our hearings over the previous weeks, the Select Committee has laid out the details of a multi-part pressure campaign driven by the former president aimed at overturning the results of the 2020 presidential election and blocking the transfer of power. We've shown that this effort was based on a lie that the election was stolen, tainted by widespread fraud, Donald Trump's big lie. In the weeks ahead, the committee will hold additional hearings about how Donald Trump summoned a mob of his supporters to Washington, spurred them to march on the Capitol, and failed to take meaningful action to quell the violence as it was unfolding on January 6th. However, in recent days, the Select Committee has obtained new information dealing with what was going on in the White House on January 6th and in the days prior. Specific detailed information about what the former president and his top aides were doing and saying in those critical hours. First-hand details of what transpired in the office of the White House Chief of Staff, just steps from the Oval Office as the threats of violence became clear, and indeed, violence ultimately descended on the Capitol in the attack on American democracy. It's important that the American people hear that information immediately. That's why, in consultation with the Vice Chair, I've recalled the committee for today's hearing. As you've seen and heard in our earlier hearings, the Select Committee has developed a massive body of evidence thanks to the many hundreds of witnesses who have voluntarily provided information relevant to our investigation. It hasn't always been easy to get that information because the same people who drove the former president's pressure campaign to overturn the election are now trying to cover up the truth about January 6th. But thanks to the courage of certain individuals, the truth won't be buried. The American people won't be left in the dark. Our witness today, Ms. Cassie Hutchinson, has embodied that courage. I won't get into a lot of detail about Ms. Hutchinson's testimony will show. I'll allow her words to speak for themselves, and I hope everyone at home will listen very closely. First, I'll recognize our distinguished Vice Chair, Ms. Cheney of Wyoming, for any opening statements she'd care to offer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In our first 5 hearings, the committee has heard from a significant number of Republicans, including former Trump administration Justice Department officials, Trump campaign officials, several members of President Trump's White House staff, a prominent conservative judge, and several others. Today's witness, Ms. Cassidy Hutchinson, is another Republican and another former member of President Trump's White House staff. Certain of us in the House of Representatives recall that Ms. Hutchinson once worked for House Republican Whip Steve Scalise, but she is also a familiar face on Capitol Hill because she held a prominent role in the White House Legislative Affairs Office and later was the principal aide to President Trump's Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows. Ms. Hutchinson has spent considerable time up here on Capitol Hill representing the Trump administration, and we welcome her back. Up until now, our hearings have each been organized to address specific elements of President Trump's plan to overturn the 2020 election. Today, we are departing somewhat from that model because Ms. Hutchinson's testimony touches on several important and cross-cutting topics that are relevant to each of our future hearings. In her role working for the White House Chief of Staff, Ms. Hutchinson handled a vast number of sensitive issues. She worked in the West Wing, several steps down the hall from the Oval Office. Ms. Hutchinson spoke daily with members of Congress, with high-ranking officials in the administration, with senior White House staff, including Mr. Meadows, with White House counsel, lawyers, and with Mr. Tony Ornato, who served as the White House Deputy Chief of Staff. She also worked on a daily basis with members of the Secret